Welcome everybody to the City REI Monthly MeetUp. First and foremost, we'd love to thank Navigator Tap Room for letting us commandeer their area for a couple of hours every month. Let's support their business by keeping our glasses full. Also, I'd like to encourage everyone to sign in with the QR code. It's up on the screen. It's also by the front door. When you sign in, you will be able to get a copy of the YouTube, or we'll alert you when the YouTube is up of the recording, and also send you copies of the slides. And it's hard to believe that the first 3 months of 2024 are coming to an end. How did your Q1 goals go? Were you successful? Where did you fall short? What are the things that you need to change to accomplish these goals? If you didn't make goals for Q2, you've got a week, and it's going to start again. This leads me to my very special guest, RJ. I've known RJ and his wife, Nicky, for several years now. It's been amazing watching their journey and success in all aspects of their lives, from hosting the Chicago Multifamily Club, to their company, EJC Construction, to their private equity company, NVR Capital, which has raised over $10 million for various investments, to the birth of their cute son, Elliot. It makes you wonder, how does he do it? And today he's gonna give us the tools he uses to stay laser focused in achieving his goals. I'd like to introduce my friend, RJ DeLeon.
Hey. Hey guys, life hack, don't do it alone. My wife is with me, Nicole DeLeon. She's out in the crowd, so it's not all just me. But I want to thank you all for being here today, because let's face it, it's a lot easier to pick out a Netflix show and curl up in bed. But we really are all here because we want to achieve our goals. We want to 10x our goals, as Nicky likes to say. So I decided to talk today about achieving your goals and things that I've utilized throughout my life to help us accomplish what we've done. It's a little crazy to think about when you say it out loud. Yes, we've raised over $10 million. We have a real estate portfolio of close to 100 units, all while having a son. We traveled the country for 9 months last year. It's been a pretty crazy and wild ride. So whenever I get asked to speak at these things, my head goes in a million different places. Typically it goes with a lot of limiting beliefs. And then it goes to ego. How am I going to dress? How am I going to impress you guys? But that's really not what's important. What's important is that I show up and I'm authentic. Authentic to you guys, but not only for you, being authentic for myself as well. It really helps. Being authentic, being genuine, and always being yourself. So today's presentation is going to be about achieving your goals, and it's a framework to help unlock your potential. So I hope that's okay with you guys. Any other real estate specific things, we're here to talk to you afterwards, okay? So success, there's a million different definitions of success. Success is different for everybody, so we're not going to argue about what success is. Instead, we're going to talk about what success hinges on. Success often hinges upon your approach to opportunities, to challenges, and to your own self-improvement. So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you guys ever think about your journey, how you've gotten here? Do you ever dissect it? Yes, we got some yeses. So do you have a framework of principles that you utilize to guide you?
I assume that I'm not the only one. I'm a numbers person, so always keeping a budget. And then in my personal life, taking care of myself, everything I do, like exercise, eating well, having good relationships, everything. That's success too.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about the framework. If any of you guys have read Ray Dalio's Principles book, or Atomic Habits, or Miracle Morning, this is very similar and it's very high level. But these are things that we often don't think about in our day-to-day lives. We think about all the successes we've had, all the challenges that we've overcome to be here today. You got to dissect it and really figure out what made me successful. How did I overcome those obstacles? And for me, that's showing up. It sounds very superficial, and there's a lot of nuances to this, but I created an acronym to showing up, because showing up, you have to be there. It also means humility, knowing you're not the only one, who, not how, finding your who's. There's a room full of great people here today. Understanding and planning. So I'll jump into that now. Ooh, the slides are a little weird. It's okay. Showing up, it's no secret. Showing up is 90% of life. Just being here, you've already put yourself in a position to do better, to be better, to build bigger, and be greater. That's it. I mean, 90% of life is just showing up. But when you show up physically, you also have to show up mentally. You have to be engaged. You have to participate. You have to openly analyze every situation that you're in. The commitment to showing up will be the difference between being ordinary or extraordinary. I'm going to tell you guys this story about the Chicago Multifamily Club. Who's heard of it? I know a lot of you guys come. So the Chicago Multifamily Club is a group that my wife and I host. We have about 9,000 members in the group. And this is truly a story of showing up. The very first meetup, it was somebody else's meetup, and she asked us to be there and to come. And I said, yeah, absolutely, we'll be there. But Nicky fell sick that day. She was ill, she was at home, she was curled up in bed, and I didn't want to go. But she said, no, you have to show up. And I said, okay, are you sure? All right, I'll go. So I showed up. In that very first meeting, she asked if I would be open to running the meetup group. I was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's a Bigger Pockets guest, episode 228, Megan McCallum. And our partner, John Kasman, who now owns over 150 million assets under management of real estate. At the time, he had 5 buildings. And she goes, great, here's John Kasman. John Kasman wants to run the group too. You guys collaborate and really figure it out. If I hadn't shown up, that opportunity would have never happened. On top of it, John consistently tells us we made the group possible because Nick and I constantly show up to curate the audience, to figure out the topics, to get the speakers involved. It takes a lot of alignment that Nicky is like the brains behind the operations. And she has to show up every single day to curate the content that we put out. Just similar to April, Julian, Angela, and Chris. These meetups are huge. I've met all of my partners by showing up to meetups like this. H is for humility, or being humble. And it's acknowledging that we don't know everything. It's checking your ego at the door. And I have a big problem with this. And a lot of people do. Once you get a little bit of success, you're like, oh, I know everything. You can't tell me nothing. I could do anything on my own by myself. That's false. You got to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers. It's a long, lonely road if you try to do it yourself. Every person has something of value to teach us. Whether or not you feel like they're below you, you got to check your ego at the door and hear and listen to what people have to say. It's not thinking less about yourself, but thinking about yourself less. Putting other people in front of you and your ego. And I actually have a great story about this. How many times do you have conversations with people and you're like, why are you telling me this? I already know all this stuff. And a lot of people are rude about it. Sometimes you're not. Oftentimes I'm not, and I'm sitting there with a monkey hitting cymbals in my head. But I had a conversation with one of my accountability partners, Amro. Amro is a principal at Spectrum Investment Group. Now, this guy got a $36 million deal, hotel conversion deal, just by showing up for $1. He struck a deal with the local government, and they gave him this building to rehab for $1. It's a $36 million project. And we were having our accountability talk, and he was going down the conversation about like TIF tax credits and stuff. I was like, yeah, I know all about TIF, but I didn't say that. What he then bestowed upon me is that with a lot of these historical projects, they give you up to and over 45% tax credits that help you pay for these projects. And I didn't know that. And I thought to myself, oh shit, I just learned something. And that was by being humble and not interjecting and having my ego speak out in front of me. Just knowing that every conversation I could learn something. Oh, you're not the only one. I like to think I'm special, and I know you all do too. It's okay, because we are special in our own rights, but our journey is shared. You got to understand you're not the only one. Look at this entire room right now. Everybody is here for one specific reason: to get better, to be better, to build bigger. So you have to know you're not the only one. Recognize that your journey is shared. Everybody faces struggles and successes. And while we're each unique, our situations really, most of the time, are not. So there's a lot of different people out there that you could reach out to, that you could tap on. You need to be able to know when to ask for help. Ask for help early. We do a lot of mentoring, and I constantly give out my phone number. And people hit me up years later after they've been through some shit. And I said, why didn't you hit me up? I was in that exact situation. I have people that could have helped you. I could have helped you. And they were too busy spinning their wheels, not checking their ego at the door, not knowing when to ask for help. So the more you ask for help, the easier it becomes. So start practicing that. You got to ask for help. I don't know how many times a week, a day I spin my own wheels, and I constantly have to go back to knowing I'm not the only one and reaching out to friends for help, support, for guidance. How many of you guys know Galvin Company? 1, 2. Galvin Company owns and manages over $10 billion of assets. I actually worked for them as a financial accountant, my first job out of college. They own 625 North Michigan. They used to own the John Hancock, 31 North LaSalle. They own half of the Class A Chicago skyline assets. Galvin Company started in the 60s with a set of duplexes. So, do you think you're the only one? How many here have duplexes? We have a couple duplexes. How many people want to own $10 billion in assets? I want to own $10 billion in assets. Ashcroft Capital, Joe Fairless. Joe Fairless owns $2.5 billion assets under management. He started with a couple single-family homes. Joe Fairless has been there before, and you could reach out to him. You could be part of his mentorship group. Casman Capital, $150 million assets under management. And our company, NVR Capital, we're slowly building, growing. I believe it's around 40 million assets under management. Along with our partners, we've raised over $10 million. And the only reason we got there is because we knew we weren't the only ones. And we reached out for help. We reached out for partners. And we found our partners in these groups. Who, not how. Finding your who's. Everybody knows about this. It's a book that was made huge by Dan Sullivan. And it's just discarding the mentality that you have to go alone. If there's people in here that haven't purchased real estate yet, listen to this message. A lot of people say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I'm telling you, that's bullshit. Scrap that right now. Because if you think about any individual real estate transaction, it takes a group of people. You have attorneys, inspectors, contractors, brokers, insurance agents. That's a team that you have to build early. So you constantly have to ask yourself, who can help me? Not how can I do this myself? We would have never been able to accomplish the things that we did if we didn't reach out to people, if we didn't ask for help, if we didn't show up to these meetup groups and find amazing partners. Shift the focus from taking on the workload to finding individuals that can help you build greatness. EJC Partners, $1 million company. I had that all on my shoulders by myself for the first 3.5 years. It was tough. I constantly felt like I was alone. It was awful. I had too much of an ego to go out and ask for help. And now in everything that we do, thanks to Nicky, we constantly think about who can help us and how can we build faster, bigger, faster, greater, more quickly. So concentrate on what you do best and build your teams early. You can achieve your goals faster and more efficiently just by adopting this mindset. In the book, Who Not How, I recommend you read it, but even just that statement helps you understand you're not alone. Check your ego at the door, show up, and find your teams and build your teams early. understanding. This one goes deep because it's not just understanding life's a process, it's understanding yourselves, understanding your reactions, understanding the situation. Think of how many different times you've been in a situation and you just immediately reacted. I'm known to be a hothead. I'm no different. And if you actually stop to understand the situation, maybe stop to understand the other person's values, viewpoints, the outcome could have been so much better. So recognize that life is a process full of constant change. I mean, there's a lot of growth, evolution. That's life. Doesn't matter how old or young you are, you have to understand. But the earlier that you understand that life is a process, the easier things will become. Self-awareness and situational awareness are definitely critical. Don't react. Understand your strengths and your weaknesses, and that puts the power back in your hands. What are you good at? What are you bad at? That's going to help you build your teams. Are you guys seeing a theme here? How everything is fluid in this system or framework. Everything's going to be fluid. And these are nuances that you could build out for yourselves. You don't have to take my guideline and my framework, but understand that every single person here has a process. But have you thought about your process and developed it for yourself? So know the nuances of the environment before reacting, because we all know about cancel culture here. Yeah, I was probably canceled a few times. If you check my history, I may have been canceled, who knows, by reacting to things, right? So it's all a decision-making process, understanding your environment, your strengths and weaknesses, put it into your decision-making process. You'll find out the best option is often not the easiest to take, but it's definitely the difference between being good, better, or being the best. And that's typically by understanding yourself, the situation, and the process. P is for planning and persistence, guys. This is something that's drilled into my head every day by my lovely wife, again, because I'm not a planner. I'm one of those people that go out and try to get shit done. Okay? But I cannot tell you how many different times that we've created a plan and things have worked out so much better. Don't tell her. Shit, she's sitting right there. Success is a result of deliberate actions. Okay? A lot of people say that luck doesn't exist, but I like the saying that luck is the crossroads between preparation and opportunity. It does have a little to do with luck, depending on whether or not you believe in luck, opportunity, and preparation, but it is always the result of deliberate actions. Planning is a cornerstone of achieving your objectives. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? There's so many different ways to get from point A to point B. It's up to you to create a plan, but not only create that plan, that's where persistence and taking action really makes a huge difference. Okay. Like if you haven't bought a property yet and you're stuck in analysis paralysis, you got to take action. There's a point that you really have to take action. Rod Khleif, take massive action. Set clear, actionable goals, outline the necessary steps to achieve them, break them down so a 5-year-old can understand them, because we do have these big, hairy, audacious goals. And when you look that far into the distance, it seems so far away. But if you can break them down into actionable steps, even reading, step 1, pick a damn book. Step 2, open the damn book. Step 3, read a page. Okay? Break them down into clear, actionable goals, and those will be the necessary steps for you to achieve your goals, which is the topic of today's discussion. We want to help you achieve your goals. Persistence is going to be the fuel to help you get there, to push past your obstacles, push past the challenges and the fears that you all have. This is a map. Now we could take the road less traveled and try to figure it out ourselves, or we could be deliberate, we could plan, we could take action, understand ourselves, understand this situation, show up, be humble, think about every single step that I've talked to you about today. It seems so easy to understand, but it's really about diving into the nuances for yourself. You don't have to follow my system, but you really have to understand and map out a framework for yourself. The framework is what's going to allow you to achieve your goals quicker, faster, get bigger goals, better goals, and it's truly great. So these are the missing pieces, right? Do you want to go in a straight line, or do you want to try to figure it out yourself? You could reach out and ask any single person in this room. We would be more than happy to help you. You're not alone. Look at the room. The person that could change your life may very well be sitting right next to you. And it's happened to us multiple times. So when planning, make sure that you focus on the goals, not the obstacles. Focus on the goals, not the obstacles. Because self-improvement is a really, really scary path. It's a long journey. So you have to know you're not alone. Look around, make sure you build your support systems or your team. Find your who's. Don't try to figure out how to do it yourself, because self-improvement, it gets real dark. You use a lot of those things that you try to do. You build a task list, and if you don't accomplish them all, you use it to battle yourself. We are our own worst critics. Self-improvement is only half the journey, because self-acceptance is the other half. We have to accept ourselves for who we are, show up authentically for ourselves and other people, and make sure we recognize our wins, big or small. Be able to recognize that we've done so much to accomplish even where we are today. Stop looking at everybody else, judging your accomplishments based on everybody else, because our journeys are unique. Although, there's been a lot of people on them. They're unique, we're unique, but we got to be able to understand, develop our teams, and that's it. So, thanks everybody for listening. To reiterate, just show up. And that showing up, humility, you're not the only one. Who, not how, understanding, and planning, and persistence. So So if anybody wants this, we created a one sheet. You can scan these QR codes on the screen or whatever. I suggest scanning the QR codes on the tabletops. You'll get an email. It has the one sheet to build your own framework. And you'll also have the ability to schedule time with Nicky and I. We love to mentor. We love to pull people up. That's what we do. We're here to create a community for everybody to be able to accomplish their goals, because we can all achieve greatness together.
Does anyone have any questions for RJ?
Yep.
Questions?
Questions. Real estate or not? I'm more than happy to answer real estate questions.
3 miles.
Only 20,000. Isn't that crazy? We traveled the entire East Coast. We only put 20,000 miles on the truck. Yes, we're building a single family home in Port Charlotte right now. We found partners down in Port Charlotte while we're down there. Oddly enough, those are people that we know from Chicago. They're part of Andrew Holmes' group, and they've built about 15 single family homes. We caught wind that they were out there. We went out to lunch. We discussed doing a project together, and we purchased a single family home lot in Port Charlotte in January, and we're waiting for the architects and the plans and the permits to come through. But yeah. Bernie.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So you've accomplished a lot. How many banks did you have to go through for one transaction to prove to us that, that we should not stop at the third or fourth bank if we don't get approved for something?
That's a great question. So Bernie asked about banks, financing. When you get a deal, you don't want to stop at shopping with one lender, one broker. Absolutely don't ever do that. Our second deal that we ever bought was a 6-unit in Washington Park. Low-hanging fruit, great opportunity. And we were stubborn as hell because we had heard about these financing programs, 10% down, fixed rates for commercial, XYZ. Well, those didn't exist, but we talked to, I think, 30-something banks. We talked to over 30 banks. We had them on a spreadsheet. We asked bankers that couldn't help us for more recommendations. It took 33 phone calls for us to choose a bank, which was a First State something bank out in Mendota. But listen to the terms we got. We got a 5-year adjustable arm, 5.5. They call it 5.5 arm. It's a 20-year term, 25-year amortization. And at the time, our rate was like 5%, like 4%. The rate was 4%, and we put 10% down. Think about that. 10% down versus 20% down. And here's the best part. It was non-recourse. Non-recourse on a 6-unit. For those of you who don't know what non-recourse is, they cannot attack our personal assets, our personal incomes if we default on the property. The only recourse they have is to take back the building. For our very first commercial deal, only having one other multifamily building prior, and not the best financials or track record, we got a non-recourse deal, 5.5 arm, under 5% rate, and 10% down. And we found that on the probably 25th bank. but we were still stubborn. We're like, yeah, we're going to see if there's other people out there. Any other questions? Yeah.
I think I'm loud enough too. So for the multifamily, how do you see the landscape moving forward? You know, high interest rates,
Sure.
net operating expenses are going up, you know, insurance going up, premiums going up. How do you guys look in the landscape moving forward with underwriting and syndications? What do you see in the next few years, or what do you advise,
Yeah.
you know, for people to look at?
Got it. So he asked about the multifamily landscape moving forward with higher interest rates, compressed cap rates, expenses going up, insurance going up. And my answer is going to be a little taboo here. We found multifamily real estate to be extremely difficult to find and acquire. It wasn't our specialty to find the deals. But we had a lot of deals fall in our lap that were outside of real estate. So we followed the returns, and that's actually, we just closed a $3.5 million raise for cannabis. We're building out 30,000 square feet of indoor cultivation in New Mexico. We got a dispensary up and running. We did an outdoor grow, and we already have our manufacturing facility, which creates your CPG products, your butter, cheddar, shard, your gummies, your vape pens. We already have that out and producing. So because we're starting to find the cap rates were being so compressed and the interest rates were being so difficult, it's extremely hard to raise capital for a deal that you can only offer a 6% preferred return on. Mm-hmm. Who wants to invest in that when everybody was getting 10% plus the years prior? Nobody. On top of that, with all the outside economic conditions, everybody was tightening up. But we found that deal. It offered 14% year one cash on cash return, all the way up to 20% in a very nuanced industry. It's very new. There are so many things on the docket that could make this explode and be a gigantic win. So we started raising capital for cannabis. Now, I'm not saying there's no multifamily deals out there. We actually put an offer in on a 4-unit on the south side. But this is an environment where people who have already built their teams that are very well experienced, that can weather the storm, this is their environment. It's not an environment for a new investor to come in and try taking a project that's over their head, get over involved, not reach out to people, not find partners, because honestly, if we weren't as successful on our first real estate deal, we'd probably still be sitting on the sidelines. And that's the truth. Yeah,
Okay.
it's on
Gotcha.
this.
I was like, I don't think this is projecting my voice.
You're good.
All right, RJ. So I can't imagine that you and Nicky thought you'd go into cannabis. So with goal setting, everyone says start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
But you didn't have cannabis and probably pivoting in the end. So how do you balance starting with the end in mind with, also being able to pivot and whatnot?
So you may think, so he asked, how did we end up in cannabis when oftentimes people start with end in mind? So how did we pivot over into real estate? That's a great question. The end in mind for us was capital raising. You could capital raise for anything. You could capital raise for this bar, for anything, to buy businesses. That's what private equity is. That's what hedge funds are. That's what they do. So you could capital raise for any type of project out there. Now, I'll tell you the mindset that we used to have, that we trumped, that allowed us to pick up this opportunity in cannabis. And that was running away from things you don't know. Okay? When you're investing in real estate, a lot of people put on these limitations for themselves, and they say, I can't do that until I do X, Y, Z. Well, why are you limiting yourself? You're giving yourself an excuse to not move forward with your goals. So we stopped doing that. We stopped telling ourselves, we used to say we need 22 individual units before we could find property management, before we could build teams, before we could capital raise. Screw that. If we were there, we'd still be sitting on the sidelines, right? So that's one of the things. Don't run away from things you don't know. Run towards them. Don't use those superficial excuses as an excuse to not move forward, to not educate yourself. Because if you tell yourself you're not going to passively invest until the time's right, when the time's right and you have that money, you're going to tell yourself, I'm not ready because I don't know enough. But if you had been educating yourself the entire time, when the time's right, you'd be able to strike. I hope that helped. You got another question?
Kind of following along in those footsteps is you're kind of in the middle of something that's newer that you're raising money for. What's one of the biggest challenges that you're faced with right now that you need help with? And how do you go about navigating those waters? Because this seems like a bigger problem than you would have imagined you would deal with. So how do you go about that now?
Are you
with your biggest challenge right now?
So our biggest challenge right now is we are restructuring our business. My biggest challenge is taking on all the work, putting my head down, being able to focus sometimes. I'm 100% a visionary. I think I scored like a 40 on the integrator test. So that means I throw out a bunch of ideas and I get mad when they're not implemented. So that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to find. One of my biggest problems right now is I'm trying to find a partner, an integrator that could keep me in line when restructuring NVR Capital's lead funnel system. So that's my biggest difficulty. So having Nicky as support, consistently telling me, you shouldn't be doing that. Create SOPs. Find somebody to help you with that. That is my significant portion of my support system. What I have to do to get better is constantly canvas for who I'm looking for, what I'm looking for, because you got to put your goals out into the ecosphere, into the atmosphere. I still preach this every single day. If you want to be in real estate, you got to tell everybody you want to be in real estate. If people look at you funny, they're not your people. Find your people. When you get excited about things and you want to talk about it every single day, and people are telling you, don't do that. Oh, what about this? What about that? You got to stop talking to them about that, because they'll put doubts in your head. You have to move forward with the group, find your team, find your who's, find your support system. If it's real estate, you're in the right spot. If it's real estate, you're in the right spot. Stop telling your mom and dad you want to buy apartment buildings. They're going to tell you you're crazy. My best friend in the world told me I was crazy and that I would get hurt. And it hurt. and it put a lot of it, you know, it made me think about a lot of the choices I was making. And now he calls me for real estate advice. So, any other questions? All right.
Awesome.
Well, really appreciate you guys coming out. Love Navigator Tap Room. Love groups like Windy City REI, because without groups like this, support systems and networks would not be possible. So talk to everybody in the room. You never know who's going to change your life.
Thank you so much, RJ. He really touched on a lot of things that we already know, but we probably push to the back of our mind. These are the things that we constantly need to be reminded of every single day to show up. Even just last week or maybe a week or two ago, RJ was asking for someone that he was looking for. He texted a bunch of people, texted us to see if we had someone that he was looking for to help in his business. So he's not just telling you this and then walking away doing something else. He's really living what he is teaching you today. So really take what he says and implement it into your life. When you read that book, implement those things that you learn. And you'll see a difference in your goals. Hopefully for quarter 2 will be better than quarter 1. Yep. Another big round of applause for RJ. And again, if you want his slides, if you want a copy of this recording, make sure you sign in with the QR code. Make sure you do the QR code that RJ had put out on this the desk, so you can get a copy of that one page and maybe schedule time with him and Nicky. And we're gonna take a picture, a group picture, if everyone can just go by the taps, and then we'll close out the meetup. Thanks everyone, we'll start networking soon.
That's awesome, bro. That's my copy.
That was